because another key aspect with tension is transparency.
Now you have to really work hard to appease everybody.
It's so hard to break into people's routines. People already have their things that they're doing.
You as a show, you should be trying to create an experience that is.
So we used to have an open mic. We went on hiatus. I'm thinking about bringing it back. I was getting an idea for people for times. I think. Let me know what your thoughts are on the show. I think the first run of the show, I was very gung ho on making the show kind of like for poets, by poets. We're really dedicated to that. I don't think I was paying enough attention to the other kind of entertainment sort of aspects that I think a show needs.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, I think the first run, the first iteration of Diverses was kind of really centered around building artists, and I think, to be clear, I think it's something that's needed, right? So I think like the mechanism that it was attempting to do is absolutely something that's needed. But you're right. I think that there was a thing where we're the entertainment value for the typical person that is not a poet, that's just maybe here to like watch poems, like maybe they don't get a lot out of the education and out of like the other parts that we're implementing, as much as they're just like, I just want to come and see a show happen in front of me. Right.
And I think that's like when you look at a lot of businesses, and that's one of the things too with the show is that I think I was missing this. When you look at a lot of businesses, they have something that they provide that's, it's like a loss driver. So it's something that typically they're giving out for free, or that's really inexpensive, like for someone to get, even if the company itself has to throw money at it in a way, like money or time. It's like, hey, I have to make myself available for this, or I have to create this product for people to get, to draw in people, right? Draw in interest, So I think something moving forward, going back with the show, is that I would kind of approach the mic more from that perspective, where it's like, hey, the goal is less about every single person coming in really focusing on the poetry aspect, and more focusing on just, hey, like, we're doing poetry tonight. Have fun, let's enjoy ourselves. Let's get poetry out there. And then if you're also interested in other opportunities, well, we have this whole platform, with the verses, where you can also get, if you're more serious about the poetry stuff.
Yeah. This is kind of, I think the working, or the work associated, the work associated with like having, and this is also something that, shout out to JG, but if there was like a way for people to actually kind of like formalize that coming in, and like let's work on your poem, let's all kind of create a community, which we kind of tried in some instances, but the show, you would never know it, right? In the course of the show, that's not even something that you have an understanding of, because not everybody's looking for that,
right?
And I think kind of the thing that happened, with Diverses, is that it kind of implied that everybody's looking for that. You know what I mean? And it's like, that also is going to whittle down the people, right? That, because it's not even going to just be people that like to perform. It's like the only people that we're appealing to is people that want to perform and that are also looking to work on their poems, which is like a much smaller subset of people than even the people that are just poets that are working on poems.
Yeah.
Right. Which is just kind of to add on what you were saying, like, the work associated with, I think like one of the bigger missions of Diverses, which is, making poets better, but then also that leading off into poets being able to eat off of their work, like that part probably doesn't happen in the front facing part of the open mic experience.
No, my approach now is definitely more, I'm thinking ecosystem. So the open mic is one arm. You bring in, that's your joint. It's kind of like, for instance, like with like sort of like YouTube. Like YouTube, you see a video, you may have never seen that person before. You check out the video, you're like, oh, this is cool. I'm vibing with this. And then like you dig more into the person, and then like the more you see it, the more you get involved. You're like, oh, they do this, I want to get involved with this too. Like it kind of just builds.
For sure.
Or you see it and you're like, okay, Like I'll check out their videos every now and then, but it's not, my thing. I think that's kind of the approach. It's the introductory vehicle. It's the entrance into the ecosystem, and then as we can offer other things off of that. And I think this is where a lot of other people that are just kind of starting our open mics, they're just thinking the open mic for the open mic.
Yeah.
Whereas, and again, that's fine. The open mic is that's the end all be all. Okay. But I think you're setting yourself up for an opportunity to build off of. Like, no, the open mic is something that, in marketing terms, is like, that's kind of that's the start to the funnel. And then if people want to dive into other things, then like, hey, we're also doing this. If you guys are really interested in poetry, by the way, we're doing this workshop this weekend, and things like that. So I think that's really key. There's a couple other issues that I think were challenges. So the original open mic we had was a Tuesday. It was pretty much the time we just kind of switched over to the podcast. 8:39 p.m. on a Tuesday. I think it's a tricky time for people. I think another thing too is we're looking on the west side. I mean, this side of Columbus artistically doesn't have the same sorts of events happening that occur in other parts of the city. And so, it takes a long time to train people that aren't used to it. This is a part of town that's relatively like kind of sleepy, like everyone kind of just doing their own thing. Like a lot of people on the west side stay on the west side. A lot of people from other parts of Columbus don't go to the west side. A lot of people don't venture like 15 minutes like west of where we are right now. So
yeah,
there were a lot of obstacles like that I think made our goal a little bit more challenging. So the times we're considering right now, instead of doing like a Tuesday night, one a little earlier in the evening. So maybe something more like 7:30 ish. In terms of times, the days I'm thinking right now would probably be more like a Friday or a Sunday. I think those are probably a little bit more accessible points for people to engage with. Also, just those are also the times when people are looking for entertainment sorts of things to do, and poetry could be that thing. It's so hard to break into people's routines. Like I said earlier, like people already have their things that they're doing. And anytime you introduce something new, you're asking people to get out of something that they've already established. I think if people are more likely to go out, they're more likely to go out on a Friday night than on a Sunday night. So that's the first thing. I think it's harder to get people, and I could be way wrong on this, but I'm kind of hypothesizing, so we can kind of break this down together. But I'm hypothesizing that it would be harder to get people to leave their homes, especially the months we're entering right now. So we're in Ohio. It's cold. Today it was 20 degrees. It's like 25 degrees. It's dark. It's gray. It's going to be like this until May.
Don't say that. Unless global warming kicks in, which I'm not saying I want the world to melt, but I'm saying, but like just during the next couple months, like a little melt, like a little bit melt.
I think that makes Sunday really challenging. That's not to say it can't be done. Like I think that it is the weekend, so that works to an advantage. But it's also the day before work. So I think some people might be like, I just want to hang in tonight because I have to go to work tomorrow for most people. Whereas I think Friday is a great day because Friday you did the work and you also get the weekend at the same time. You know what I mean? Like a Friday night, because like, oh man, I have Saturday and Sunday and tonight. That's why I'm personally leaning Friday.
That's fair.
Although I think something that would be cool in the future. I'm scared to try it, but like,
I think we should create a third dimension in space and time, and then host our open mic inside of that dimensional portal.
Do you think it would work?
I think that's the only. Then you don't have to, like, you could just imagine, use your brain to enter into the portal.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of work. I don't use my
Now
brain.
you just got to train your audience to use the portals. Train your audience to use the portals.
A morning mic, like a brunch mic. You start some cantaloupe and read a poem.
Gotta have some brunch food. Gotta have some mimosas.
But I'm okay with that. This is a business expense. But yeah, like imagine you brought like some fruit trays or something like that. You could charge people like, hey, the open mic itself is free, but if you want a plate, $5 or something like that. You know what I mean? But it's something I want to experiment with in the future because one, I've never heard of a mic doing that before. And two, I also think that could also open you up to a whole new audience because now you might be able to get families, because like night mics, you can't really bring your kids and things like that to that, The other advantage is that they like brunch. Let's go. Get our chicken and waffles on. Food. Most of the mics don't really have food, and breakfast food is much cheaper than dinner food.
I never really thought about it. I guess you're right.
So it's like I feel
like I can never.
I'm talking myself into doing this, and I don't want to do it.
Either I'm talking myself into doing this, or I really want brunch right now.
It's my favorite meal.
Brunch is your favorite meal?
Breakfast is, but I'll compromise. So those are the challenges I think our original open mic kind of ran into, and yeah, I think the other thing too is that, and this is something that Christoph mentioned. We got into the talk about open mics. Is that taking the time to kind of just debrief after these things, talk about what's going on and things like that. One of the things that you mentioned before you attended that open mic, I forget, it was serpents and snakes and
apples and snakes.
Apples and snakes. And one of the things they had was limited mic, and that's something I really want to embrace because I think that one key aspect of successful events is the idea of limitations. We talked about writers block, for instance, that there were times, especially their last year as they were getting ready to shut down, you literally couldn't go in. You had to wait for people to leave because the room was literally packed. The idea of limitations is so powerful. It creates tension. People act out of tension. When people buy things, they're buying things out of tension. When people go to things, they're going to things out of tension. So I like that aspect of a limited mic. So I'm really thinking that for us, that's probably something I'd like to embrace. Setting a cap, 10 poets. If it's under 10, cool. If it's over 10, sorry, next time. That's something I think that's a solid number. That's something I really want to embrace. Something else I'm toying with the idea of as well is like reserving a couple of spots on the mic to people who reply online or something like that.
That's right.
So it's reserving, hey, 3 spots. If you want to join it, tomorrow at 8:00, I'm going to open up the sign up sheet online on Facebook or something like that. Be the first 3 people to respond. You're guaranteed a spot at the mic, something like that. And it's not a strategy I see a lot of mics doing, because a lot of mics definitely are more day of the event. You walk through the door, you sign up for the list there. So I think that's one way that you can also start to create a little bit of that tension, but also because another key aspect with tension is transparency. For instance, the super easy example, the restaurant that has the lion out the door.
Yeah.
And the food may not even be you're walking by what's so special about this restaurant versus any other restaurant, right? And then next door to that restaurant there'll be another restaurant that's completely empty, and it might be just same exact food. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The advantage and disadvantage for that restaurant is the transparency factor. People are drawn to things that they see other people are interested in. And then if you're also oh, this is limited, then those two things combined, if you have transparency plus tension that are together, that's when you're able to kind of really push things a lot further. So those are things that I really want to experiment with more.
Yeah. There's also one of the things to consider is what you feel like people are paying the admission for.
So that's just Sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
I'm still deciding on fee. I'm trying to decide, are we going to charge or be free? I'm still deciding on that.
Well, no, so just in like a larger
Mhm.
concept, right? So like I think one of the things at the very least, I'll say like about a lot of like Columbus open mics, and that's not to say like some of the how would you put it? Maybe the legacy ones. I mean, there's not a lot of those around anymore. But like when there was the kind of legacy ones that were around, and even with some of the ones that are happening right now, like what are people paying the price of admission for, and kind of actually training your audience to understand like, okay, like what's happening here, because I guess at least for everybody that was going to Apples and Steaks, like they were like, it was worth my money regardless if I performed.
Mm-hmm.
It was worth it to be in the space to cheer on my friends, to cheer on these poets that are getting. There's like a couple of people that had never been on the open mic list before, so bam, now like they're cheering them on. They loved the features, and so they enjoyed the show. So also there's like some production that's kind of needed, because it was a beautiful show. I want to be really clear. Shout out to that show. Shout out to the host. Shout out to everybody that's part of that, because like that was a beautifully ran show, beautiful venue, beautiful energies, all that good stuff was really super present in that space. But it was just to say that like in that capacity, like people were, and I don't know, I can't remember what it translates to, but I think it was like something around like $10 or something like that. It was like a little bit more than $10 for admission to that show. Mm-hmm. It was more than worth it. Like, and like I think everybody there already understood it's more than worth it, right? Whereas I think a lot of shows, and again, this is also kind of you as a show, you should be trying to create an experience that is good enough that if somebody was not a performer, that they would enjoy your show. Because now you have a group of people, because again, those people, regardless, more than likely they're not performing. You know what I mean? Like they understood, like with as many people on the list, more than likely they're not going to get on the list, but they still paid that money. And there's a lot of people, if you gave them those same odds in our poetry show ecosystem, would be like, oh, I have a 10% chance of performing on this open mic. I'm not going to go. Because they're what they're paying for, what they are paying for. So the thing that they're giving you their money for, what they are believing they're buying is the opportunity to perform, or they're buying not the opportunity to perform, they're buying the guarantee of performing on stage.
Yeah.
And I think that show sells them on, you're going to get a great show and you might be part of it. Like, who knows? But we're going to give you a great show. So I think that should also be a goal if you're going to kind of go into a format of, because unless you're going to make it clear, like online somewhere, like, hey, if you're on your way to the open mic, just to let you know the open mic just closed. Then like by the time they get to your show, it's like, hopefully they go up to the mic and they say, oh, or they go up to this and they say, oh, it's full, but I still want to see the show. Hopefully that it's like that. But I fear that there's a lot of poets that would feel otherwise. But
and that's why I want to make it clear from the beginning, like limited open mic, like very limited, because I don't want there to be any surprises. So thinking back to our open mic, so something I am toying with is bringing the equipment, not live streaming, not shooting the whole thing, but you can let me know your thoughts on this, but like kind of doing like an encore kind of thing where it's like at the beginning of the open mic, you're kind of just talking to the crowd, getting the vibe. Pick someone in the crowd, make sure that they're staying for the show, and then asking them, okay, at the end of the show, you will have the ability to give the encore to one poet. So now we've done two things. We have given that role responsibility onto a crowd member. So now they're feeling privileged themselves. So it's a lot of weight on them.
Yeah.
And then they're also giving that opportunity to someone else. So there's that kind of like that sense of gifting. You know what I mean?
That fixes. I mean, that literally closes not only, but it also creates I think a space in the show for kind of this not a feeling of feeling of authority, but it's like I think I would even say if you set up this dynamic and you were just like, the thing that might be hard is like somebody coming in and kind of being like a little as, oh, I don't know anybody, and then they
Mhm.
really know like
Mhm.
exactly who they would give it to. But I mean, I guess you could technically do that with Slam too, right? So like
Mhm.
maybe this is kind of an unavoidable part.
Mhm.
But even if at the beginning of the show you were just like, who all is new out here, who's never
Mhm.
been, like kind
Mhm.
of do that kind of routine, so that way you can kind of get a good amount of people that are new.
Mhm.
And then after you do that, once once the show is over, once the show is kind of wrapped up, it's like, okay, now you might have maybe 3 or 4 people that you can choose from, and then you'd be like, Dan, hey Dan, how did you like the show? Like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, okay.
Mhm.
Like, Dan, okay, listen, you heard from this poet, this poet, this poet, blah 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 blah. Who do you want to see perform again? And then that way it's
Mhm.
like, now even the audience, now you have to really work hard to appease everybody,
Mhm.
because, or to do good with everybody,
Mhm.
kind of like in how in Slam maybe you're performing to the audience, but you're like locking eyes with the judges, like here, here.
Yeah.
But like now it's like you don't know which one of these new people is going to be the decision maker, so you just are performing your heart out. And now it
Mhm.
encourages the audience to be paying attention, because
Mhm.
now it's like these new people don't know who could be it. And maybe you don't always have to choose a new person. Like maybe
Mhm.
these people come in a couple times and you just notice like maybe this person just knows everybody, but they're not like
Mhm.
particular friends with anybody.
Yeah.
And then you could even do
Mhm.
like a little other segment,
Mhm.
like, why did you choose it, like at the end of battle rap. I don't know how familiar you are with like the battle rap scene, but that at the end of like a lot of battle rap like videos and stuff like that, you'll have these people kind of giving these interviews where like, this is the reason why I thought this guy win, this is the reason why I thought that guy won, this guy did this guy did
Mhm.
this. So you can kind of have that as kind of like an after
Yeah.
action. So that way it kind of feels like, oh, I get to do something else, which
Mhm.
is this other video content, which is like, I feel like this person is this kind of poet and they're this is this. And you can even play that in conjunction with the person's
Yeah.
poem.